epithelial tissues. We're going to look at the different types of epithelial tissues, where they're found, and what their function is. The general on epithelial tissues is that they line the surfaces in body cavities. So you'd have them, say, on your skin. You'd also have them in your mouth, maybe lining the inside of your stomach, the inside of your abdominal cavity. So you get the idea. They are all anchored down by a structure called a basement membrane. As far as naming goes, we name our epithelial tissues according to the number of cell layers. If there's one layer, we're going to call it simple. If there's more than one layer, we'll call it stratified. And then the shape of the cells. So they might be flattened cells that are squamous. They might be cube-shaped cells that are cuboidal. But we'll look at that in just a second. All right, so the major types of epithelial tissues. The first type is called simple squamous epithelium. Simple means that there's one layer of cells. Squamous means that the cells are flattened. The function for simple squamous epithelium is diffusion. That should make sense. If we want to move a material across a cell membrane, it would make sense that we only had one layer of cells. The more layers we had, the more difficult it would be to diffuse something. So one layer of cells is going to work the best. Flattened cells, of course, would work well, again, because they're going to have very small distances for the materials to travel. You can find simple squamous epithelium in places like your blood vessels, where we know that we want oxygen, say, and carbon dioxide to be able to easily diffuse across the membranes. Additionally, we can find some of the simple squamous epithelium inside of the lungs, again, for the purpose of diffusion of gases across those membranes. The next type of epithelial tissue is simple cuboidal. As the name implies, this is going to be one layer of cube-shaped cells. The function of simple cuboidal epithelium is both secretion and absorption. You can find simple cuboidal epithelium in places like the kidney tubules, where we will have absorption of lots of materials that had been filtered out of the blood, let's say, and also glands. Glands do a great deal of secretion. Taking a look at this picture, you can see in the top left, coming from the lung, the simple squamous epithelium. The green structure is the basement membrane, and as well you can see that on top of that there's only one flattened layer of cells. Coming from the kidneys on the bottom, again we have a basement membrane to which all of the cells are attached, and the cells are cube-shaped. So one layer of cube-shaped cells gives us a simple cuboidal epithelium. You might also notice that the nuclei of those cells are centrally located. That's going to be a telltale sign that it's a cuboidal epithelium. The next type of epithelial tissue is called simple columnar. As the name implies, we're going to have one layer of column-shaped cells. The function of simple columnar epithelium is absorption and mucus production. You can find simple columnar epithelium lining the digestive organs. So you might find some of this in the intestines, you might find some in the stomach, etc. Stratified squamous is another type of epithelial tissue. Our naming scheme has changed a little bit now. Stratified means that there's more than one layer of cells, and squamous, of course, still means that the cells are flattened in shape. The function of a stratified squamous epithelium is to protect against friction and drying. It should make sense that if you have multiple layers of cells, you could lose a few of those and still not really damage the tissue. So it protects against friction. And additionally, it protects against drying because the outer layer of these cells are the ones that are going to be squamous. The places that you can find stratified squamous epithelium include the mouth and the vagina. Both places are going to be subjected to lots of friction. Both places need to be protected against drying as well. The mouth, if you've ever eaten a potato chip, you know, is a very dangerous place. So the real jagged edges of the potato chip aren't going to necessarily damage the tissue on the inside of your mouth because you can afford to lose some of those layers of cells. And additionally, the vagina is going to be subjected to lots of friction during childbirth. taking a look at the pictures here, we have on the bottom left, you can see a simple columnar epithelium. That's going to be one layer of column-shaped cells. And again, there's the green structure on the bottom, which is the basement membrane to which all of the cells are anchored down. On the top right, you can see the stratified squamous epithelium. Again, there's going to be a basement membrane. There are multiple layers of cells, and you can see also that the cells are actually named for the apical or the top layer. So the cells at the basement membrane actually appear to be kind of cuboidal, but as you get closer and closer to the surface, we get flatter cells. So the mouth, again, is a good example of where you can find the stratified squamous epithelium. There are also some types of glandular epithelial tissue. The endocrine glands would be lined with glandular epithelial tissue. Their function is to secrete hormones into the bloodstream. Examples of an endocrine gland is going to be something like the thyroid gland that you can find in your neck, and possibly the pancreas, which you can find in the abdominal cavity. The exocrine glands are going to be another type of glandular epithelial. These are going to secrete their product into a hollow organ or a duct. For example, they're going to be releasing their contents mostly to the outside of the body. If you can keep in your mind that the digestive tract is really outside of the body, it's just a tube that travels through the body. The example then would be salivary glands releasing saliva and digestive glands releasing some digestive juices. There's also some structural support in place for your epithelial tissues. The cells have to be attached to one another in some manner. The way they do that is via a cell junction. There are a couple major types of cell junctions that you'll find inside the body. The first of those junctions is a tight junction. In a tight junction, you have no movement between adjacent cells. The kidneys and the digestive tract are good examples of where you might have a tight junction. Literally, what happens is that the cell membranes are kind of fused together. This is important because, say in the digestive tract, you've got all sorts of food mixed with digestive juices. You don't want those digestive juices to leak between adjacent cells and go from being, say, inside the intestines to being inside the abdominal cavity. So these are really important junctions. Another type of cell junction is called an adhesion junction. Adhesion junctions allow some movement between cells. You can find this type of junction in places like the skin. The female uterus is another place, so it does allow movement, but the cells are still anchored tightly to one another. And the last type of cell junction is a gap junction. These types of junctions have connecting channels, so the cell membranes fuse to one another and open up so that there's actually a channel connecting the two cells. This allows the cells to share cytoplasm and such so that they can communicate better. Cells that function or have lots of gap junctions would be the liver cells and your heart cells. Recognize that your cells don't just have one type of cell junction. A cell can have multiple types of cell junctions. This picture here shows a couple different types. The top left, or A, is your adhesion junction. So you can see how it almost has like tree roots going into adjacent cells, so it anchors with those proteins. B is going to be a tight junction, where you have literally the cell membranes kind of fused together to inhibit movement between adjacent cells. And then C is your gap junction, where a channel is actually created so that the cytoplasm can be shared between cells.